Welcome to Swirl Radio. I am militant mentor and founder of Swirl. Today we have Ollie here from Australia. Never been there, so really looking forward to talk to him about his company Fingertip. If you haven't tried it, definitely try it. If you're an entrepreneur, get on Fingertip, get your website running.
Hey, I'm Terrence, the founder of Proactivity.io and an executive coach.
Hi, I'm Talita, founder of Savvy Bison Career Consulting, and I'm a UX practitioner.
Hi, my name is Innie. I'm a senior product designer working in growth at Intercom, and I'm also the host of a growth design podcast.
And I'm Ollie. I'm the co-founder of Fingertip.
Okay, Ollie, let's get started. We're going to pick your brain because a lot of people want to start companies and they don't actually successfully start them, and you are running it and are getting even more funding. So we want to hear your story. Tell us a little bit about what Fingertip is, why you started it.
Sure. So it's interesting because I made the decision to start this business before we actually even knew what it was going to be. But we knew that there was a massive gap in this gig economy space. Everyone had side hustles, everyone had ideas, but no one really knew what that first step was going to be. And I had so many different ideas growing up, but I never had, like, other than creating an Instagram page, that was like, what else can I do that's not going to cost me $1,000 or overextend myself? And that's kind of how Fingertip grew to become this platform that really supports these one-man shows, these sole operators. So Fingertip at its core, it's a website builder, but it's got all these tools that will actually support and help a sole operator run and manage their business day to day. So it's got appointment scheduling, so you can have one-on-one classes or group classes. You can send invoices, send quotes, send email campaigns to your network. You can sell products, whether it be physical, digital, online courses. You can build forms and surveys. You can write blogs. So it really is a one-stop shop to help you run and manage your business, especially if you're using Instagram or 20 different platforms that are costing you hundreds of dollars a month. So that's the pitch. But I suppose when we started it, it had a bit of a different angle. It was targeting more physical businesses that already had, a bit of a flow going on, but they didn't really know how to connect the physical world to the digital world. But once we started it, it kind of really took off in that entrepreneurship space.
Well, let me stop you right there. How did you start it? Can you walk us through a little bit about how that
Yeah.
went down?
We started the journey about 2 years ago. I was working across a couple of different startups in Sydney, and I always had the itch. I knew I really wanted to create something. It was just the right timing and the right opportunity, and also the right people around me. Like, I'm a generalist, I have great ideas, but I needed other people around me to help execute. And I was like okay with admitting that. I didn't have to be the man. I needed help. And so I was working in another job, and I became quite close with the investors who were invested in that previous company. And it came to a point in that job where I was like, I need to just, now's the time. I don't have kids. I've kind of had this window of opportunity to kind of take a risk. And my partner, now my wife, was really supportive of me giving it a go. So I knew the name was going to be Fingertip. I knew it was going to be a tool to help people. I just didn't know which people, and I didn't know what was going to be inside the tool. So quit my job and just spent 6 months trying to work it out. And that was a very scary 6 months because obviously I'm not being paid. And you have to fill your days with things to do when you don't have a product. So I literally just pounded the pavement and went to as many different businesses as possible on the street, cafes, restaurants, retail stores, and just asking them what do they need, what like do you have any pain points, what can I possibly help you with? And I started to work out what this product was looking like by getting this feedback. So then
What
we
were
got
their major pain points?
it was understanding who their customers were, and it was creating something that was affordable and something that was easy to update. A lot of these guys who were brick and mortar companies had websites or link in bios that either didn't look good or were too expensive to
Mm.
change. So how can we create something that's so easy to manage that you can just jump in, make an update? But the second issue there was that none of these guys had time. Like, I was walking into a cafe, I was speaking to the guy who was, behind the coffee machine making coffee, being like, "Oh, got this idea, it's Fingertip," and I'm pretty much selling oxygen at the time. And they would be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. But they never did. So then the next kind of phase of Fingertip was building a prototype and then going them to show them something physical. Oh, that looks cool. Yeah, I'll look at it this weekend. And they still weren't doing it. So then I brought on a technical co-founder who is just an absolute genius, and he completely rebuilt Fingertip because I think the way that we had it at the time, it was too similar to competitors out there. It looked like Linktree, it looked like Beacons. It wasn't. You look at it and you wouldn't be wowed. And I had this idea in my head that it was going to be modular and it was going to be like an iPhone home screen where you can drag and drop and move things around, and it was colorful and you'd be really proud to show it. So Matt came on. He was at Mr. Yum. He was living in Texas at the time, and I convinced him to move back to Australia and actually give Fingertip a go before we were even a business or a product. And he took a chance on that, which was awesome. And he just completely rebuilt Fingertip. So when I went into those cafes or I spoke to the plumber or I spoke to the mechanic, showing them what this looked like was, definitely a better conversation because they were visually engaged. So after a while, it was going in and showing them. And again, they still were missing that one thing to make them really want to commit to Fingertip. So then we built a feature where you can put in a couple of your social links, you can put in your LinkedIn, you can put in a website, and it will scrape the information from those platforms. And with AI, it will build you a page that's 80% complete. So all you have to do is just claim the page, put the cherry on top, change a couple of images, and now you've got a website or a link in bio, or in some instances, a digital business card.
I gotta rewind. I'm sorry. How did you build it? Like, are you an engineer? What's your
That's what
background?
I was
Did you
going to
bring
ask.
in
What's your
design?
background?
Like,
I'm,
who
I'm
built the prototype?
I'm definitely not the engineer. I know what looks good and I know what feels good, but Matt is the dude that can actually do it. So we worked really closely. I felt like I was becoming a bit of a product guy unofficially. I was like a product manager built with sticky tape. Like it was kind of we made it work, but I knew what the customers were wanting, and I had to work out how to best communicate that to Matt to then build. Um, so no, we built Fingertip with one developer, and we brought on one maybe a year or so ago.
A lot of folks that are starting business from like a go-to-market or a product background really struggle to find a good technical co-founder. I've
Yeah.
had several clients that have gone through multiple technical co-founders. How did you know that Matt was the right guy?
It's a funny story, and I agree. And a lot of people have said to me, "Oh man, I wish I had a technical co-founder who's commercially minded, who is like sociable and wanting to engage, because it's a very specific personality. More often than not, that's
Engineering and social don't quite go together.
I know that's why the jackpot with Matt.
That's
So
such a bad stereotype, though.
but I think that it's interesting, but I think their personalities that they like their own space, they need to just like focus. Their job is really about building. I come from a sales and marketing background, so I like distract people in the office or like talk a lot. But Matt is just the perfect person to work with. Funny story is that our mums are actually like best friends. And we grew up together, but then there was a 15-year period where you just grow up and you move away. I moved to Sydney and life happens, and there was one weekend that I was in my hometown in Melbourne, and I was working out what's going to happen with Fingertip. But I was in that phase where it was like, it's not looking good enough. I don't know what to do because I can't build it. I don't want to use an agency because they don't really give a crap about the product. They're not going to get excited if I call them up at 2 in the morning to say, hey, what if we made the button blue or something? And they're not going to get excited. They'll say that's like $20,000 to change or something ridiculous. So then my mum mentioned to me, "Hey, Matt's in town. Is getting married," and I was like, oh, "Matt, what a throwback! Like, what has he been up to?" So I looked on LinkedIn and naturally did the stalk, and I saw that he had a company that was acquired by Mr. Yum, and it was in the QR code space, and that essentially allowed for small businesses during COVID to create their own QR code so you can check in when you walk in. Now, at that time, Fingertip was a little bit more QR code centric, where we were providing these businesses with QR codes to put on their shop front window. So I was like, wow, okay, Matt knows QR codes. He knows how to develop a product, and I know him personally. Like, this could be a really good opportunity. So he got married on the Sunday, and I called him on the Monday morning, and
Forget
literally,
about a honeymoon, right?
I need to meet you today for 20 minutes. When do you go home? He goes, I go home tomorrow night. So I'm like, oh my God, I have 24 hours. I go, I need to meet you. He goes, I just got married yesterday. I go, just ask your wife, give me 20 minutes. So we met at the cafe around the corner. And I pretty much just said to him, look, we're going to build a business. It's going to be really great. You're going to be the CTO, but I need you to actually like commit to me. He goes, well, I can't commit. I'm on a great job in Texas and senior developer. And I'm like, we're working on half part-time for 2 months. And I promise you, you're going to quit. You're going to come back to Australia and you're going to build this with me. And it actually happened. And there was a couple of scary moments there where I'm like, oh my God, this dude is actually believing me and is going to kind of change the direction, his trajectory of his life. But he backed me in and he's done an incredible job. And he's not the only one who's contributed to this story, but from a development point of view, he's our MVP.
Oh gosh, I have so many questions. Let's start with this. You and Matt are now starting to build this thing. You are talking to users or potential users.
Mm.
How did you go from zero to actually finding the first one that committed to the product?
Yeah,
And beyond that, how do you grow to the first 100 products, for
yeah,
example, and then beyond? And I'm also curious to know how many users you've got right now.
yeah. It's a really good question. And this is the part of the story that I'm really proud of. When we were building this prototype, we probably had it, you know, for just Matt and I and my other two co-founders, which I'll touch on in a second. And I probably chose about 20 businesses locally and just said, hey, this is free. I made this for you. What do you think? Can I show it to them? And they'd be like, yeah, that's cool. And they'd use it on their Instagram or their TikTok, or they'd put a sticker on their front window of their shop. So that was a cool way for me to just like ask some questions, get a bit of feedback. It was a really slow grind. And I probably worked really closely with those 20, 30 businesses for like 6 months until literally this time last year, we launched the beta and shared it to our network. Um, my other two co-founders are very successful guys. They've, in Australia considered like the godfathers of e-commerce. Like they set up the first major marketplace in Australia. So I was incredibly fortunate to have them as mentors as well. Not as day to day as Matt and I, but more like big picture kind of mentorship for the product. And Hezi, who's my co-founder, his biggest piece of advice was keep your finger on the pulse and just obsess over these customers till we get an understanding and till we're really confident in our market fit. So everything about Fingertip was organic. I still have not spent $1 on advertising. Like everything's been completely organic.
Wow.
I know. And the great thing with Fingertip is that it's a very sticky product. If I'm a dance teacher or if I'm a business coach and I share it to my network, chances are there's going to be other dance teachers or business coaches who's going to see this and be like, oh, that looks interesting. What's that? Or that looks like Stan Store. Oh, how much is it? Oh my God, it's 1/10 of the price of Stan Store a month. Like I could save $1,000 a year. So a lot of those conversations are happening. But when we first got that first organic customer was like the best feeling ever, where we get the Slack notification. Oh, wow. Okay. Whoa. Okay. This person's in Thailand. They're a tutor in Thailand. How the hell did they hear of us? And then you see 10 other tutors in Thailand sign up. And then you have a sex worker in Miami who wants to use something to legitimize her work, which is awesome. And then you have a DJ in like Egypt or whatever. It's just like being like we've got this map, we're just looking at things pop up left, right, and center. So then the first 100 came through and we felt good. And at this time we weren't monetizing it. And then the first 1,000, then we hit 10,000. And currently now we've got just under 20,000. And that's gone completely organic. But we've just gone through the process of a bigger deal will come through, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We're just doing the final touches. That's going to see us, we'll be one of the biggest players in the microsite space in the world. So that will be very exciting to share.
I'm just also looking at the website right now and seeing how very well laid out all the information is and things around that. And it's like many times I see it's a common CRO or just go to market strategy mistake I see a lot of small businesses making, right? Where it's you're not able to fine tune in very, very simple sentences, describe what you're up to or what you're about. And it's like taking this long route to really explain or just talking too much, quite frankly. I want to get a gist of what your process has been to just really nailing the messaging, because it's one thing to nail it with the customers, but it's also another thing to nail it on the website to people who might just discover it organically, like you've mentioned.
Eddie, that is music to my ears that you've just said that, because it might look clean and concise right now, but it took us so long to work out how to do this website. the messaging. Like we've had so many internal debates about this. Like one of the biggest pains has been, Fingertip is so powerful. There's so much you can do with it. How do we explain that in one sentence? That's not going to overwhelm my, 70-year-old auntie who wants to knit socks for Christmas. How can I explain to her what Fingertip is, where she's just not going to be like, well, that's too much. So it's really great that you understand and totally get what we're putting out there. But the journey was really hard, especially as we added new features and we'd be like, okay, you know, we're this, but then we'd add this new feature and be like, well, shit, maybe we're more than that now, and maybe we're not just for that type of user. Maybe we're more for these type of users. But then if we became too broad and too big, then like, who are we actually for? And we needed to create a community. I needed someone, you know, to when they came across this problem to want to be part of our community and use our solution. It's a really big challenge that I don't think, even though it's in a great position now, I don't think it's over. I think we'll constantly have to evolve who we're for and what we're doing. But it was a very long. It was a very long process. I reckon we've done the website like 15 times. The branding, that isn't the whole saying. If you're not embarrassed by your website or your brand 4 months ago, then you're not
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
And
True.
I'm humiliated.
This
But
is good.
the where it's at now, the branding, it's in a really great space, and that's kind of just like a combination of bits and pieces along the journey. It's like, when you go to someone's house and you just wonder how do they get all this cool stuff, but really it's been 30, 40 years of them collecting little trinkets and little bits and pieces from one house or that trip, and it kind of comes together in this beautiful sort of space. And we're very proud of the Fingertip branding. It feels fresh, it feels inviting and warming, and um, in terms of the messaging, we're confident in that as well, but it's going to have to be localized, which is another massive challenge. How we see it, in the Western culture might be very different to how people see it in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia. So I think we're just going to have to be very dynamic.
I can absolutely relate to that. I used to be on naughty antivirus, like 500 million global users, and localization was a big headache, constantly translating every page. So I understand and I empathize with you, but I imagine you guys will figure it out.
I think we will.
I'm curious what it was that made you so confident in your conversation with Matt that you just spit this whole future out to him and then brought it into the world. I mean, that's a real visionary trait and like something that is a huge boon to founders, and I want to know where it came from.
It's a good question. I never really thought about that, and I feel like any answer would make me seem narcissistic or psychotic. But it's one of those things I genuinely believe. I think one of my major traits or characteristics is just like enthusiasm and passion. And I just knew that he was the guy. And if I had him and I had the passion and the ideas and the ability to sell and market, then like why couldn't we do it? Like it definitely won't happen without him, but it definitely might happen with him. So I just felt comfortable, and the fact that I had my two co-founders, Gubby and Hezi, in my corner as well. It's like we had the pieces, we had the bootstrapping, the funding, and we just needed to be together and just to give it a go. And I'm just always, I just really believe in trying things and just putting yourself out there. And even if Matt left that coffee meeting being like, well, Ollie seems a bit delusional, but whatever, that's cool. At least I tried. Like I had to I had to try. That's all, really. And so far, so good. And I think everything that I'm saying is actually, or that I said at the time, is starting to come together. Like I think I sold in the world, and we're starting to get some of the benefits. Like yesterday, we were named 30 under 30 in Asia, which is really cool.
Congrats. That's
Nice.
awesome.
Thank
Congratulations.
you very much. And that was like I think in the first 2 years or year and a half of setting up a business, you don't get many like materialistic rewards, which I know that sounds kind of strange to say, but like you're not meant to fuss over rewards, but it's one of those things where you're like, you know what, we didn't get paid, but like this is a cool way to say like you're doing a good job. So
Good publicity also.
totally, totally. So it's been it's been a good journey, and I think like the next 2 years are going to be awesome.
I wanted to ask you a little bit on the dark side, like looking back now that you've kind of reached this huge milestone, is there anything that you would love to kind of talk about that you might have done differently, or any kind of things you'd like to share with someone who might be a early founder?
Mm. I think, look, it's really hard. And you have moments where, you're like, well, what the hell am I doing? I could be on such better money in a company that has a structure and a process, and I could just like finish my job at 5:30, come home, make dinner, and just like relax. And it doesn't help that my wife also is a founder. So we're both just like dinner
Oh,
conversations that
wow.
just like intense. It doesn't really end, but I think it's so cliche, but like being comfortable, just being uncomfortable, and dealing with imposter syndrome, which is like a real thing. And I think, I have another friend who just started a business and they've just gone full time, and they're like, it's scary. And you have to fill your days, and you have to make the decision on how you're going to fill your day when there's no structure and there's no formula. It's just kind of like seeing what happens.
How do you fill your day?
Well, at the start, it was like, well, I don't even know what the product is yet. So, like, I have to go find out. So, my literally was like spending each day was in a new suburb, and I'll just go and hit the main street for that suburb, try and speak to 20, 30 businesses, come home, understand what I've just done, then go to the next one the next day. So, that was like my first couple of months, which was really exhausting, but like very rewarding. And now it's like, wow, we've got a team and we've got a product and we've got customer service and like there's like operational stuff for the business. And then there's meeting with potential partners and I still call up as many new customers as possible. Like, Aka, I think that's how we connected. It's just like, I think I reached out to you to say, hey, I saw a page was created. I'd love to know more about you and how I can help you. And if you have any feedback, let me know. Because at that time, we were so lightweight that like we were taking on any feedback and building as fast as possible. I think, Aka, you were like, we need themes. We want it to look like this product. Can you do that? And I was like, give me a day. And we built the new
Yeah,
theme,
that was
built the look
crazy,
and
man.
feel. And I think a big part of how I want Fingertip to be known and how I want to be known is that we genuinely care about our users and our community. Everyone who signs up to Fingertip gets my email and they have the ability to call me, book in a meeting with me. Like, I'll take any call. The fact that they've taken the time and in some instances spending money on Fingertip, like, I want them to trust us. And that's kind of what it takes.
I wanted to kind of transition to talking to investors, because I think that's something that founders don't know how to do. And
Mm,
I wanted to kind of see your perspective on it and your experience with it. Because they're very different from founders. They're very like, get to the point,
yeah.
you know, how is this going to
Yeah.
make money?
And it's tough. They can see through the sweet talking. So the conversation with, luckily Matt's not an investor, I think is where I'm getting at, because that would have been a lot harder of a conversation. Look, investing and speaking to investors, they come across a lot of businesses and a lot of them are going to sell them the world. And a lot of them have incredible products. And the reality is that, like, some crazy stat, like 99% of businesses or startups are going to fail. So how am I going to prove to them that I might be that 1%? There's a couple of factors that kind of got us to where we are. One is that I had an incredible network of people, also having, Gubby and Hezi in my corner. Like, I'm not an idiot. I know how valuable that was. So when I was speaking to investors, I had a bit more legitimacy, but also like it's just a really bad time to raise right now. The markets are just recovering. It's been a really tricky conversation. Australia is small compared to the rest of the world. So our conversations were predominantly in Australia, Southeast Asia. It was a tricky one. We had to, really nail who we are, what we did, and address what the opportunity was without seeming like overkill. You hear about these pitches where they're like, if we can just capture 1% of the market, we'll be, a trillion-dollar business. But it's like, that's not how things work. I think for us, we just had to really, really nail the product and build a community, and the rest will follow.
And how did you talk to investors knowing that like you had brought on Matt and you were thinking like, okay, things are changing? Did
Mm.
you wait until like you guys were really clear, or did you have several rounds where you kind of talked to folks and things changed?
So Matt came on 2 years ago, nearly 2 years ago. So the conversations with investors are probably only in the last 6 or 7 months.
Oh wow. So
So
where did you find funding? Was it all like your own money or
I didn't pay myself a salary, neither did Matt. So it was a year and a half there where it was just like, I need to find money.
Like,
Um,
uh-huh.
then, uh, well, we had an allotment of money. I just felt like it would be better spent on people around me because I'm not going anywhere, but my value will only increase if I had people who could build a better product. So that was kind of how we felt about that. But the conversations were honest and real. Like it'd start with a coffee, and the power of a coffee is just it's a really special thing where you go in there and you're honest and you're like, look, I just want to meet you. So it's like a pre-official, it's like a pre-date sort of thing where it's kind of like,
Hmm.
hey, know you. So when I do eventually pitch, we've got that relationship. Um,
Right.
I don't think there's any perfect formula to deal with an investor. Every investor is different. Some of them focus on one part of the business, the others like to focus on other parts of the business. So I don't think it's like a one size fits all. I think my strength is probably like emotional intelligence and knowing how to navigate different conversations, position ourselves in a different light. Also, like one of the early lessons that I learned from Hezi, my co-founder, was to not all you don't always have to speak, and sometimes
Mm,
speaking or saying I don't know the answer to that is a
right.
lot more powerful than spinning up some bullshit response. So I think it's just being confident in myself, confident in what I'm saying, but also confident in what I'm not saying. So yeah, I think the investor stuff, it's a really interesting experience, and you can't get emotional about it because if they're not going to get in, well, it's like okay, they're not in and move on. You can't really fixate on why. You can't take it personally. It's all business.
How did you decide who to speak to? Like what investors to sort of, I hate to say target, but
Yeah.
like how did you figure out who's a potential person or who's a good person to speak to?
Well, it wasn't just about money. We had to work with an investor that was actually going to provide us, whether it be access to a network or,
Mm,
um, provide us with the tools to help us grow in a new uh, location or provide us with infrastructure. So it wasn't just about money. Australia actually has some phenomenal tech startup stories, obviously with Afterpay and Canva, Atlassian, and includes Jira and everything. So we've actually got like quite an
mhm.
incredible tech
Yeah,
startup,
that's pretty amazing.
and there's so many more that I've just forgotten. So there's space here. Everyone's looking for the next Canva and the next Afterpay. So everyone's kind of got their eyes peeled on what's happening, but it's a very small community. I imagine it's what like kind of San Francisco would be like. Everyone knows what everyone's doing. So if you're doing something, you got to move fast and kind of be very stealthy.
I wanted to kind of jump into the other type of relationship, which is you as a leader and having sort of a team. How have you grown as a leader from the point that you started to now, and how have you changed as a leader as well?
Good question. I've always been passionate about leadership, and whether that be in high school or university or sports teams, I've always like wanted to play. I'm a big team player, and I think a big part of being a leader is also just listening to your community or your network. And I said to Matt, the way that we're running this is totally transparent. I really believe in building an emotional relationship before you want to get someone's buy-in. Like if I called up one of my employees on a Sunday, if I didn't have a friendship with them or an emotional connection with them, why are they going to want to do something on a Sunday afternoon when they're with their family? So I want to create an environment where like anyone would do anything for the other person. And we keep a we've got a really tight team. There's only like on the fingertip side of things, there's only really 5 or 6 of us, and we keep it super honest, open. Any things that are happening with the business that Matt and I are concerned about, or things that might happen, everything's out there. Like we don't want no surprises, sort of thing. But for me personally, there was a point where we had like 15 people in the team, and a lot of it was remote. And I remember looking around on the Zoom call and being like, "Holy shit! Like these people are actually like." They work for Fingertip. I could not comprehend that these people are taking a risk and actually are like believing what we're doing. It was a very rewarding feeling, but a very scary feeling at the same time. So I think being a leader it's very important to back yourself in. If people didn't want to be here, they wouldn't. And so I think that's one thing that you really need to remind yourself on. But I'm all about just authenticity and just being real. And I think leadership development is just constantly, you know, it's constantly developing. And I am looking for new ways to improve how I'm a leader. But I think for now, I feel very comfortable with how Matt and I built the company.
You mentioned imposter syndrome early on in the conversation.
Yep.
Have you dealt with any imposter syndrome as a leader? I mean, you kind of mentioned, you had the 15 people and it was like, wow, these people are looking up to me. But in other ways, how do you manage imposter syndrome yourself or either for like your employees?
I don't know if any of my employees, it's not something that has really come up. I don't think Matt experiences it. I think I never had any ideas of imposter syndrome before I started this. If anything, I was almost too confident in other jobs. I
Kind
think
of have to be though.
yeah, I think with this it was more it wasn't so much imposter syndrome about my leadership capabilities or my skill set. It was more about like, wow, like this is all happening. And then it just being like this, I deserve to be in this position because we've built it. It's a good product. People love it. We're having conversations about capital raises and that next level, and we deserve to be in this position. But sometimes you naturally catch yourself out being like, well, this is kind of scary. Like, am I
Mhm.
at the start, especially, it was like, am I ready for this? Am I going to be good enough for this? And
Yeah.
because also we've been working remote, you have moments of isolation. But again, my wife is phenomenal and she's experienced that herself and has been an amazing sounding board for me as another founder. But I think those moments come and go really quickly. I think it's normal. I think like there's just so much happening, and especially when you're dealing with like money and like big money, it's like of course it's going to get scary at times. So I think embrace it, understand how you can make yourself feel better, and then you'll kind of build up a bit more resilience.
I want
Yeah.
to take this back to the product itself again for a bit and just your knowledge of how you've grown. Because you said your background is in marketing and sales and things like that, right? But then you definitely have to begin to lean into product strategy and product thinking and
Yep.
all of this ways of building not just the products, like how do we ship, when do we ship, what kind of features are important right now. You're talking to customers, you're feeding back, you've got that constant loop going on. At what point did it come together for you, so to speak? Like, it's great that you've got the sales background,
Mm.
you know how to sell the thing you're talking about, right? But in terms of your knowledge of product building, of product development, in the early days versus now, I'm curious about what your growth has looked like.
It's a good question. I have definitely grown into a more product management role. And I actually see that's probably when my future is going to be in the company, is probably going to be a little bit more product, and because I've got it all in my head. And that's been really great at helping me develop and communicate that better. Like the tickets I used to raise at the start for how something's wrong with a product, it was just like nonsensical. And now I'm trying to learn how to be a little bit more concise and clear with what I need fixed and how I think we can fix it. I also think that just because I've been exposed to the back end of the product, I'm just understanding more about how things work and integrations and all this side of thing. But also, my brain just doesn't work like that. Like Matt's brain is very different to mine. It's so mine's definitely more visual, where I understand what the experience should be, and I think because I've kept so close to our customers, that's kind of just been I've been that person who's representing our customers when we talk about the product. Does that kind of answer the question? Just how I've grown as a product
Yeah.
manager. I think it's definitely improving, but I imagine that we'll need an A grader eventually to really own that space. But we'll get there.
Along those same lines, um, what is your user experience? Do you have a UX team? Like, what are they like, and how do you work with them?
When I jumped back and said that we had 15 people, we did have this big team, but Matt and I
Hmm.
just were so inefficient. I just felt like half our conversations were just like confirming the meeting that we had last week and what
You
I'm
scaled a little too
just
fast.
let's just like keep it to four of us. We've got Ixie, who's our senior engineer. He supports Matt. He is a gun. He's so good, seeing him develop has been really rewarding. The fact that this guy who's been in the game longer than Matt and I, and seeing like him actually develop to be way better than when he first came to us is really cool that we were able
Hmm.
to support that. And then we've got Kurt, who's our designer, who also, that story is awesome, but he's awesome. So he has kind of taken on everything from a visual perspective, and also he didn't know anything about UX before, but we've kind of guided him to say, well, you're by default our UX guy, so this is what we're thinking. Go design it, and then we can go from there. We all use the product. We all love the product, and we all, growing up, would have had instances where we needed this product. So we know exactly what our customers would need because we're one of them. So I'd be lying if I was saying that, oh no, we have this whole process and it's like we go through this phase and then it's that phase. And to be honest, sometimes I think we maybe should, and we are getting there. But a lot of the time we look at the product and we're like, wait, this needs that button so I can do X, Y, Z. So then that just builds that button so we can do X, Y, Z. So it's a lot of it's a little bit more knee jerky when we speak to our customers, but that doesn't mean that, there's a lot of research that goes into a lot of the other features.
I guess at the beginning, that's what's really needed to grow the product, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to have some sort of like 10 million steps roadmap or things figured out for you to be able to know what to do. And it has to be knee-jerk reaction to what the customers need, and you staying very grass level with them. So it does make sense. Yeah.
Totally. And there's been a lot of arguments. Like, for example, Matt has felt really strongly about one thing that we cannot do. Like, I think it was, we cannot have backgrounds on the pages. We can only give them colors. We can't do photos. It's just going to look awful. And I was like, no, like, we have to let them own this whole experience. It has to be customizable. Otherwise, it's just going to look like a lot of other landing page websites out there that are lame, that look like they're built in the 90s. And it's like, we have to feel modern and customizable and make someone excited by what they can do. We need to make someone think of an idea of what they could put in their background. And some of the ideas that we've had have been amazing. We've had people almost hack Fingertip in a way where their pages look completely different to what we've designed as a template. So the fact that they've been able to work out ways around what we've given them and to use it in a way that looks like phenomenal it's very cool. Right now, the argument between Matt and I is about font color, where I just want people to be able to customize all their font color, but Matt is just like, it creates a great opportunity for their page to look bad, and we want every page to look good, and that's why we've got these themes. But I just think that the customer needs to have something in their head. They need to also be able to create it with Fingertip, and they can if it's custom, and we do custom pages. But yeah, I think I'll have to eventually get him over the line on that one.
You got to give the people what they want. But you touched on something that I wanted to ask about in terms of like decision-making processes as a founder. How do you sort of break that tie if one person wants one thing and the other person feels very strongly about something?
Yeah, I think the way that we operate as a team is probably more unique. We operate as a committee, and when we first started Fingertip, Gubby and Hezi, from the get-go, completely removed all ego from anyone, and everyone was brought down to be on one level. It's not 3 against 1. It's not how we operate. It is the best argument will win. And if you believe in something, well, then back it up, give receipts, and show why you think it's a great idea. We can test it. We definitely operate as a committee. It's not one person says and that's the way it is. However, as we've grown our team, we've had to adjust the way that we operate. Obviously, you can't have 20 people in committee. So the way that we've started to communicate is that we've broken down our messaging into 3 different types of messages. And the reason this came around is because we had, we'd be in a meeting and I'd say to one of our employees, oh, that'd be cool if we had this feature. And then 2 weeks later, they'd show the feature. And I was like, that's great. We wanted that. But like, why did you do it without like any proper kind of process? And he says, well, because you said it in the meeting. So now Matt and I are having to say, well, there's 3 different types of messaging. And we heard about this from another founder in our space who said there's going to be an idea, which is where I share an idea. It's pick it up or put it down. That's just what I think could be cool. Why don't we investigate it? If you don't agree, just tell me why. And then the second level is a recommendation. I think we should do this because X, Y, Z, but tell me why you think we shouldn't do it with X, Y, Z, to make it more of a conversation. And then the last level is a mandate, which is I'm the leader of this. This is what we're doing. So go do it, sort of thing. Very, very rare that I don't think we've ever actually gone to that third level of mandate of telling someone what to do. 95% of the time, it's going to be a recommendation. Let's have a conversation about it.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it gives people a little bit more ownership other than saying this is a mandate, you have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that on the ownership part, I remember like Ixie when he came on, and he was doing a lot of like heavy lifting in terms of integrations, which isn't the sexy side of engineering. And I said to him, whilst you're doing this, think of something completely different that you think Fingertip should have as a product and just build it. And if it's going to keep you excited, if it's going to be that 30% of your task, it's going to keep you like engaged and excited to work
Hmm.
on, do it. Like I completely back you in. You know what this product is, you know it could be handy. And he's built pretty much our entire appointment scheduling feature and he's done an amazing, amazing job doing that. So that was his passion project, and he often will come to meetings to be like, hey, looked into this, maybe we can improve that. And I'm like, if that gets you excited and it's going to make the product better, like go for it. He's going to build it better if he's excited by it.
Totally agree. Do you have anything that you can kind of tell us what's on your roadmap, like something cool that you're building that might roll out in the next, I don't know, month or so or quarter?
With the amount of products that we've rolled out in the last 6 months has just been like ridiculous. So we've got like obviously we've got appointment scheduling. We can do group classes and one-on-one classes. We're going to add the ability to do events, so like one-off events that you can showcase on your Fingertip as well. Now we've got email broadcasting, and we'll just continue to enhance that whole experience and automations and broadcasts and across like SMS and WhatsApp. I think for us, we want to provide our users the opportunity to, if we can help them save time and make money, then we're the ultimate product. So I think, how can we provide them opportunities to make money where maybe other businesses can also make money? So creating almost like a marketplace of sorts would be a really powerful feature that I think we should look into. But I think for us, this next journey, which we'll be able to share about in a couple of weeks, is going to take up quite a bit of time. I think put us on the map in terms of website tools. The way I've been explaining it to Matt, it's like having the best, pickup game, but then not being invited to any parties. Well, we know how good we are. We've got the confidence. We've got an incredible product. We just haven't really put ourselves in positions to really access the American market yet, or the European market. I think this year is going to be about scale. It's going to be about partnerships. We're working with lots of different businesses and how they can provide Fingertip pages to their employees to use as digital business cards. We're speaking to lots of networks who want to provide this to their community of restaurants or personal trainers. And I think right now I really want to try and work with networks to provide Fingertip to them in bulk and solve a problem for them. But I think there's a lot more to come with Fingertip, and how our customers can use it and save time and make money and look good in the process.
As you were talking about the community aspect, yeah, an idea popped into my head because I was just thinking like what we call like growth loops to just continue to grow the product. Your vision of, and you can use this in an argument against your vision of how customers should have like customization features also lends to being able to create templates that you can share with like the
Yeah, we have
Fingertip
that. Yeah,
community, right? You've
yeah,
got that already?
and you can sell. You can sell a template.
Look at that.
So we have the
Perfect.
ability to, when you create a page, and I highly recommend you guys jumping in and creating one after, you have the ability to turn your page into a template. So that means if I share that link and I send it to you, Innie, you can literally create a page based off my page. So what we have customers doing are creating pages and then selling that link to that page for $10. So if I'm going to have millions, and we will have millions of users by the end of this year, like 10 million users by the end of this year, and they all have things to sell or services to sell, then why couldn't we be a major, major marketplace? So,
Go. Come on,
just gotta get there.
US, UK, get
Yeah.
on Fingertip before it gets more expensive like Webflow.
No, we will never. You know what? I challenge that. We will never be more expensive. Our whole deal is to be affordable. I can promise you, and that's if that's going to shoot me in the foot and kind of kill the FOMO.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Well, I don't care. It's Fingertip. We're built to be affordable, and we want us to be approachable. And if you have a friend whose kid is starting a babysitting company or a dog walking company or a lemonade stand, Fingertip needs to be that first move. So we'll be as cheap as we need to be in order to help that person, you know, be able to achieve that. So that's what we're all about.